Morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. We're looking at Daniel 9, specifically verse 27, because this is key to the articles we're going to take a look at. And this is going to give an indication as to, as the tractor goes by with a very loud trailer on the back of it. Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Anyways, the articles speak about the third temple and the return of the Messiah that the Jews are looking for. And of course, Jews never recognized that Jesus Christ was actually the Messiah who came 2,000 years ago. They will recognize that Jesus was the Messiah, but right now they're looking for the Messiah. Well, Daniel 9:27 speaks about a third temple, and it says, "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week." This is the week of years, the 7-year period that is described as the tribulation period. Many are believing now that 3.5 years is actually the number of years of the actual tribulation. The last 3.5 years of that 7-year period are in fact the wrath of God on mankind. It goes on, "And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease." Why is that important? Well, because the Jews don't recognize Jesus as Messiah. They are still looking to sacrifice through the temple. Once the Messiah comes back, they don't need the temple to sacrifice anymore because the Messiah is there. So the fact that they don't recognize the Messiah means that they're still looking for a temple, and they're still looking to sacrifice in the temple. Now, they won't sacrifice officially until there is a proper sanctified, temple there that the rabbis and the high priest can sacrifice in. So what happens in the middle of this week is the Antichrist causes the sacrifices to cease. It says, "He shall cause sacrifice and oblation to cease." What does that mean? It means that sacrifices and oblations must have been proceeding, must have been going. They must have been doing sacrifices. And that means there must have been a third temple, because the Jewish people will not sacrifice officially without an official temple, whether that's a temporary temple or a permanent temple. There has to be a temple somewhere, and there's no such thing right now. So it means a temple is built prior to that, probably at the beginning or even before the 7-year tribulation starts. Maybe at the beginning where the Antichrist brings in a peace covenant. And it says, "And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate." And so again, speaking of the third temple, this is where you read, not quite between the lines, but it's pretty obvious there. Based on the Jews and their requirements, this is speaking of the third temple being in place and the sacrifices in the third temple being stopped. Well, let's look at this one. This is from BreakingIsraelNews.com. "A week of earthquakes, eclipses, and other divine signs." From July 30th, yesterday, several rabbis are pointing to last week's rare lunar eclipse and continued earthquakes as a divine pre-messianic wake-up call. So they think the Messiah is coming soon. What they don't know is that first the Antichrist is coming, and they're going to accept the Antichrist as Messiah initially. And that means if they think the Messiah is coming soon, that could mean the Antichrist is coming basically at the same time, because, like I said, the Antichrist is who they're going to recognize first as Messiah, and then they're going to quickly realize, once the abomination of desolation occurs, that he is not the Messiah. Regardless, if they're seeing Messiah coming soon, what that really means, for those who understand Bible prophecy, is that the Antichrist is coming soon. It goes on, "In fact, it isn't only the rabbis, even Arab sources are labeling the recent earthquakes as part of the end of days conflict centered around Jerusalem." And the Arabs in Islam, there's a whole messianic prophetic eschatology as it relates to them and the the 12th imam rather, and the Antichrist in their eschatology is actually Jesus Christ in our eschatology. So their eschatology is completely mirror image, reverse of what we see it as. Their Messiah is actually our Antichrist in the Bible. On Friday, Israel witnessed 2 natural phenomena. A 4.2 magnitude earthquake struck North Kinneret at noon, and as the sun set, a total lunar eclipse hung overhead, turning the moon deep crimson. The eclipse was remarkably rare, the longest lunar eclipse seen over the skies of Israel in more than a century. The earthquake was remarkable, not for its rarity, it said, It was the second of the week and the most recent in a series of that has shaken North Israel in the past several weeks. On a practical level, this is alarming since Israel is situated along a Syrian-African rift, a tear in the Earth's crust, the length of the border separating Israel from Jordan, extending from northern Syria to Mozambique. The last major earthquake in Israel struck in 1927, interestingly, a 6.2 magnitude tremor that killed 500 people and injured another 700. Experts have warned a large earthquake could strike Israel in the near future, and the government has begun funding projects for public buildings to be bolstered against tremors. We know in the last days that when the Lord returns, he will set his feet upon the Mount of Olives, and that will cause the Mount of Olives to split and move apart, and that will cause a massive worldwide earthquake as the feet of the Lord Jesus Christ sets down at the second coming. In a recent wave of earthquakes, if the recent wave of earthquakes are a sign of things to come, if it may have messianic meaning, massive earthquakes in Israel are prophesied to accompany the multinational Gog and Magog conflict, which is very, very close, and that will signal the end of times. Absolutely it will, because then there's a domino trigger effect that will come once that's triggered, and will trigger God to come back in power and glory and to save Israel when no one else can save them. What happens prior to that? Well, you'll note that in those Ezekiel 38 scriptures, Western nations aren't mentioned, and notably the United States is not mentioned, which means they're taken out. Are they taken out by weapons of war or by economic collapse? I believe economic collapse is very close. The world is ripe for it. All the commentators are looking for it. It should have happened in 2008, but they didn't let it happen in 2008. And I think that is really what kicks off the end times, a worldwide economic collapse, which set us up for a mark of the beast system and an Antichrist figure to come into the void, into the vacuum, and set up a new world currency system, i.e. the mark of the beast monetary system. And so I think in the order of events, an economic collapse is the next thing, and then you start seeing the prophetic wars going bang, 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 and the return of the Lord in quick succession. Once it starts going down, it is going to go down quite rapidly. Here's another one. This is from WorldNetDaily.com. Messiah mania hits fever pitch in Israel. Messiah mania has reached a fever pitch as one prominent rabbi says. What time are we at there? Prophesied says the one prominent rabbi says the prophesied Redeemer was born a week ago. What is that about? That almost sounds like the 12th Imam, honestly, being born. That sounds similar to the Islamic eschatology. While a group of promoting rebuilding of the temple released a new TV spot saying the time has arrived. So they're pushing in Israel for the rebuilding of the third temple. A new TV spot has been there. And you say, the scriptures in Daniel don't speak about a third temple. The third temple is not mentioned in Bible prophecy. It is by way of mentioning that the sacrifices are going to be stopped. And some people say, well, Israel doesn't want a third temple. Yeah, they do. You have huge numbers of people who desperately want a third temple rebuilt so they can sacrifice. And you have this TV spot saying the time has arrived. And the temple has to be there. The temple will probably be there prior to or at the same time as the Antichrist comes to life. Or comes into the picture, rather. So you have all these converging events, and if the temple is rebuilt, that means the Antichrist is very, very close. And if the temple is rebuilt, that also means the 7-year tribulation is very, very close. That also means that economic collapse is very, very close, or has already happened, because it's the Antichrist that brings in the world government and the mark of the beast system. So all these things are timed in very quick succession, very closely together on the chronology. And I believe what comes first is the economic collapse, which gives the Antichrist a chance to come into power. It will be through massive hardship, massive economic collapse, that the Antichrist will rise to power, quickly gain power, be able to set up a world government, and all these things will kick off the building of the third temple, and the abomination of desolation, Ezekiel 38, Isaiah 17, all these things, and likely even Ezekiel 38 and Isaiah 17 happen even before the Antichrist is able to pronounce peace, peace. And so all these things could possibly be in the next 2 years. I think we're less than 3 years away from the 70 tribulation, less than 10 years away from the return of the Lord. I think we're that close. I think events are occurring now as we read these articles, showing how short the time is. It goes on here. Meanwhile, a group of Muslims clashed Friday with Israeli police on the Temple Mount, so tensions are rising there. Maybe it's the blood moons, maybe it's the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, or maybe, suggest other rabbis, now that the majority of Jews in the world now live in Israel, prophecy is ready to be fulfilled. This is what the article writer is saying. Remember, don't blame me, I'm just reading the articles. And some people blame me in the comments for saying, you lie and all this kind of stuff. I'm reading the articles. This is the opinion of many others, including experts, etc., rabbis from around the world, news agencies, and you put all this together and you see Bible prophecy being fulfilled, and these things getting very, very close, excitingly close. Remember, when these things start to happen, your redemption draws nigh. The return of the Lord draws near. We are living in biblical times, and so if you ever want to live in the excitement of the biblical times, we're living in them. It's incredible to be alive right now. It says, perhaps the most surprising development is a statement by a well-respected Israeli rabbi, Chaim Kanivsky, a leading authority on Haredi Jewish society, stating unequivocally that the Messiah was born July 21st. So, the Messiah was, I don't know who they're talking about again. To me, it sounds like the 12th Imam, and maybe that's indeed who they're talking about, because the Islamic eschatology speaks of the 12th Imam who will come out of a well, in effect being born, in the last days, and he is the Islamic Messiah. And we know that the Messiah who the Jews think is the Messiah will end up being the Antichrist, and the 12th Imam ends up being the Antichrist. So it could be that their eschatologies actually will mesh very shortly here, and they will be deceived, the Jews will be deceived, but they will be corrected through by way of the 7-year tribulation. They will be corrected, and they'll recognize that, the Antichrist figure is not the Messiah because he's desolating the temple. And then they will eventually recognize Jesus Christ as the Messiah, but not before all these things come down. So you can see the convergence of the Jewish beliefs of the birth of the Messiah here in this article. I'm not saying it. This is a rabbi saying that the Messiah was born July 21st. So again, is this related to the 12th Imam? Is that part and part, the same entity effectively? Well, Kanevsky, hailed as one of the leading rabbis of his generation, wrote a book, Siach Nekema, or A Comforting Discourse, that claims the Messiah is alive today, and when Israel merits it, he will immediately reveal himself. So when they're ready, the Antichrist will reveal himself. Interestingly, when Israel's ready for Messiah, the Antichrist is ready to step in that place and present himself to them. A Hebrew language religious news site explained the rabbi based his statements on the Jerusalem Talmud and Midrash Rabbah, a collection of homiletic teachings believed to be compiled in the 5th century in Tiberias, which states the Messiah will be born on Tish B'Av, which is observed as a fast mourning, the destruction of the Jewish temple. This year, Tish B'Av fell on a Saturday, July 27th. It seems to me, he said, that the sages intended to teach us that even the temple is destroyed. In any case, the redemption exists, he said, and the Messiah actually exists and lives among us. He passes from one body to another in each generation. So, interestingly, that almost sounds like, again, Satan, who always has an Antichrist ready to go for when the time is ready. Every generation, Satan has an Antichrist figure ready to go. Many say it was in the form of Hitler when he was alive. Satan doesn't know when the time of the end is coming. So he has someone in the wings in every generation ready to go to fulfill this prophecy. This generation displays absolute hatred for those who learn the Bible, especially in recent years, Kanevsky wrote, and he's accurate there. We are seeing all conditions described in the Talmud appear before us. I believe that's true as well. We are seeing all conditions described in the Bible before us. It is the reason that we anticipate the appearance of the Messiah at any moment. God willing. It goes on to speak about the Temple Institute, who has all the temple implements ready. They're ready to set up the third temple. Guys, time is short. We are living in the last days. Be excited, for your redemption draws near. When you see these things coming to pass, your redemption draws nigh. We're getting very, very close, guys. Time is short. We don't have much time left on earth. I believe it wholeheartedly, based on the events, the convergence of events, the prophetic scriptures, and even looking at the eschatology of other religions. They're also coming to a similar conclusion in terms of the timing of all this. Although their Messiah figure and their Antichrist figure are, oftentimes reversed, mirror image, as is the case with Islamic eschatology. Incredible days we're living in, guys. You know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. He's coming back soon. You don't have a lot of time left if you don't know Jesus Christ. To find him, ask him into your heart. He died on a cross 2,000 years ago for my sin and your sin. He rose again, victorious. And he's coming again soon to judge the planet. And judge man, rather, on the planet. And your time is running out if you don't know him now. Thanks for watching, guys.